I'm noticing a very bizarre trend on Netflix where incredibly popular shows do not seem to get a season 2. Did you notice that? With Resident Evil, for example. They claimed it's very popular, most watched, and then it does not get a season 2. It's very bizarre, isn't it? Because you'd think if it's successful and if people watch it, that it would get a season 2. So either they're fidgeting the numbers and they're lying about how popular these shows are, or the people at Netflix have gone completely loco and crazy and they just don't want to make profits. Which one do you think it is? Which is the most likely one, huh? Now, the latest show, which was incredibly popular, is Sandman. Now, I personally didn't watch Sandman because I support diversity. And it turns out that the writer of the show also supports diversity. And I was like, a kindred spirit. Now, the author wanted to be inclusive, so he race swapped a lot of the characters, he gender swapped characters, and I was like, you know what? You do your part, I do mine. You diversify the cast, and I diversify your audience. So instead of watching your show, I'll watch anime. So by removing myself from the audience, there's now less white people watching, so you can have a more diverse audience percentage-wise than if I had watched your show. Instead, I'm going to watch shows that are made by Japanese people. I'm going to watch anime, and I'm going to fuel the diversity there, because there's a lot of Japanese people that watch anime, so there I can contribute, right? Because I understand entertainment now is politics, right? Like, entertainment and politics is one of the same. It's very important what you watch, what you consume. You have to be very careful if you want to consider yourself a progressive person. So I did my part. But other people, unlike me, were a little bit more emotional about the race swapping. Apparently, the choice of Lady Death was not very welcomed among the fandom. For some bizarre reason, and this is what I literally do not understand, they gender swapped Constantine. I mean, Constantine is a very iconic character. It had its own TV show. It had the very popular movie with Keanu Reeves playing Constantine. Like, it was so weird that you chose to take something that's already an established brand that everyone knows, and you're just like flipping it out. Like, okay, whatever, they did them, and it's like, that's fine. But then the author was giving sass to people on Twitter. Like, he was constantly roasting them for saying, hey, your show is not going to do very well. It's not, like, if you choose to purposefully push controversy into the fandom like that, you're going to upset people, and upset people don't watch your show. Upset people don't spend money on your merchandise. But no, like, apparently everyone was wrong. Like, the show was incredibly popular. It was very famous. Like, the guy knew what he was doing, and, the media was giving glowing reviews. But apparently now it's not going to get a season 2. But you see, it's not going to get a season 2, not because it wasn't popular. Of course, it was immensely popular. The reason is because people didn't binge watch it. I've never heard this happen before. Like, I wasn't even aware that this is what Netflix is after. Like, they want you to binge watch their shows. I mean, how many people actually binge watch? That's another question. Like, if you watch a show a day, I mean, many times it happens that I watch a show a day. And other things that I do like to watch, they do get season 2s. I mean, I don't necessarily binge watch. I mean, I didn't binge watch Cobra Kai, but apparently I guess I should have. Because, like, if I don't binge watch Cobra Kai, it might not get the new season. See, I didn't know about these things. It's so great that I'm being told. We don't blame people for wanting to take things slow with the Sandman, as there were so many themes to be explored on an episode-by-episode basis. Oh, you see, what happened was that this show was so cerebral that people would watch an episode, and then they would go into the silent corner to meditate and ingurgitate what they just have watched. Right? Like, this is why people weren't binge watching. It was that it was a very cerebral show. Also, for those who had not previously read the comics and dissected everything happening, we would imagine that people watching the show were sometimes confused and wanting to take a breather to discuss everything they had just seen. So again, the reason is that people would watch an episode, they would ingurgitate, then they would go online, they would talk with other people on the forums, and this would take a lot of time. It was a very time-investive activity. And, this is why people didn't binge watch. So anyone that tells you that the reason this show got canceled is because of low ratings, they're lying, okay? They're spreading dangerous conspiracy theories, probably from Vladimir Putin. No, right? And if people are telling you that they didn't binge watch because the show was boring and the only reason people were watching it is because it was nothing else to watch and it was mediocre, no, that's also a lie. No, like people were very invested. I mean, all the memes that were coming up on the internet with the Sandman, right? Like everyone was talking about it. I remember logging on Discord. Literally everyone was talking about Sandman. On the streets, online, everyone, like people were just talking about the show. It was the best show ever. But unfortunately, again, people didn't binge watch, so we're not going to get a season 2. The slow nature of people watching The Sandman may have been for the better of the understanding it. Seems to mess with the overall viewership of the show, meaning that it could be in trouble according to the initial viewership hour period that Netflix holds so dearly. Take Stranger Things, for instance. Oh, I see. The show captured into the number 2 most viewed show on Netflix history based on that 28-day period. But that was because people were binge-watching the episodes so quickly in that period. According to the above number from Neil Gaiman, everyone took their time with The Sandman, so the number of people that watched the show might have been thrown off or not counted within the 28-day period. I love how Neil, like the Neil Gaiman, like he look at him, you know, he is such a wise individual. He's a wise intellectual. Like he knows why people didn't binge watch. Right? Like you don't have to tell him. He doesn't even have to make a poll or a survey. That's what happens when you're an intellectual. You can save money on polls and surveys. You know why people weren't watching it. It's not because the show was boring or mediocre. No. They were talking with each other. They were discussing. They were digesting the material. They were ingurgitating the source material. And they were reading the comic books, right? But because they were doing that, because it was such a cerebral endeavor, they didn't have time to binge watch. The Sandman did stay, look at this, number 1 spot for shows on Netflix for many weeks. And it had favorable ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. The series holds an 87% critical approval rating with a equally respectable 80% audience approval rating. So it's not as if the numbers aren't there to support another season. The issue might be that people are tweeting at Neil Gaiman and asking him what the delay is when you should be tweeting at Netflix. Yeah, I find this to be, again, very peculiar, very bizarre. Another Netflix success, like glowing success, right? Which, number 2 for so many weeks. I mean, so many people, glowing reviews, and yet the season 2 is in question. Well, you know what I think? I'll tell you what I think. I think the people at Netflix are also taking their time with the show and analyzing the ratings, because it's also very cerebral, very difficult. They're talking with other producers, maybe from Amazon, maybe from other places, and they're discussing whether or not there's going to be a season 2. Because it takes time with this show. It's very deep. Right? It's like reading a book about quantum physics. It's very intellectually stimulating. Took time for the audience. It must take time for the people at Netflix as well. Let me know what you guys think. And I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.